Hey everyone, welcome back, and today let's solve Leetcode problem 1455 titled Check if a word occurs as the prefix of any word in a sentence. So we're given a sentence that consists of some words separated by a single space and a search word, and we need to check if search word is a prefix of any word in the sentence. And we need to then return the index of the word in the sentence, that is one indexed, where search word is a prefix of the word. And if search word is a prefix of more than one word, we simply have to return the index of the first word, right? The smallest possible minimum index. And if there is no such word, we have to return -1. And a prefix of a string is any leading contiguous substring of S. And so for some examples, if we had the string like ABAD or ABAD, then a prefix of this would be A. Another prefix would be AB or ABA or ABAD. But something that's not a prefix is BAD or AD. Why? Because these may be contiguous, but they don't start from the 0th index of the string, right? They're not actually prefixes, they're simply just substrings. So, in example 1, we have our input string sentence to be I love eating burger. Notice how all the different separate words are separated by a single space, and we have our search word to be burg. And in this case, we output 4 because that's the index of the element or word in the sentence that has a prefix of search word. In this case, burger has a prefix of burg, right? And so in that case, that's going to be an output of 4 because burger is the 4th index in our input string sequence or sentence, sorry. And the reason why it's index 4 and not 3 is because unlike programming style, we're not actually having a 0-indexed data structure. We're not counting from 0, we're counting from 1 in this problem, right? It's 1 index, as you can see here. That's also very important to know. So in example 2, we have our input string sentence to be this problem is an easy problem, and it actually is in my opinion, and we have our search word to be pro. In this case, that's going to be the very last and the second word, but in this case we have to output the second because we want the minimum index, and so pro is a prefix of problem, which we have the second and sixth word, but we want to return 2 as the minimal index. So in example 3, we have the sentence I am tired and our search word to be you, and notice how you is not a prefix of any of the words in our sentence, and so for that reason we have to output -1. So as you can see, it is a pretty easy problem. And the past few days we've had some very difficult problems as the daily Leetcode challenge problem, at least in my opinion. And so I'm glad to see a pretty kind of relieving, simple problem for today. So with that out of the way, I will give you guys a few seconds to just go over this problem in your head and think of a valid solution, and then I'll show you guys how I would optimally solve this problem in a few seconds. Okay, so for a quick high-level rundown of how the algorithm actually is going to work, we're simply going to just regularly enumerate through our input string sentence because we also want the index because that's what we're trying to return. And once we actually find a word that starts with this search word prefix, then we can just immediately return the index. Okay, in this case, the index plus 1 because this is 1 index instead of being 0 indexed, and so that's how we're going to work. And one more thing to note is that usually when we're iterating over data structures, arrays or lists are the easiest to do so, because if we iterate over the sentence, it's going to be kind of hard to actually find all the different separate words that are separated by a single space. And so just joining them or splitting them into a list as separate elements is going to be a lot easier. And in Python, we can do that using the .split method. And so I'm going to initialize my actual words. That's going to be a list to be equal to sentence .split. Right? So basically, it looks at all the different words that are separated by a single space in our input string, and it simply just converts them it simply just appends them and joins them into lists as separate elements. So if we had I love eating burger, words would then be initialized to I love eating burger, right? It's basically just, oops, okay, that's quite weird. But as you can see, it's basically just a list of all these different elements as strings instead of just being just one actual element. Okay? So that's what we do with this .split method and store that list into words. And now we actually have to enumerate over the words, the different words that we have in our input string that we converted into a list. So for I and N in enumerate, that's a simple way to actually get the index and the actual element N itself in the words as we iterate over the data structure of our words list that we converted from a string. If the current word, right, and that's going to be N, if N starts with, and in Python that's quite simple, it's just starts with the actual search word, That's simply checking, well, if is search word actually a prefix of the current n? In that case, we have to return I plus 1. And the reason why we return I plus 1 and not just the regular index itself is because, again, this is one indexed. So if we're at index 2, it's not index 1, 0 index base, it's index 2. And so we have to return I plus 1 because the enumerating method here is actually a 0 indexed iteration or iterator. Okay, so we have to return I plus 1 for the actual index because it's just one index of the actual word n, right? So basically we're just iterating over, or rather enumerating over our into-the-right words, or rather our list words, where I is the index of the current word n, and if n starts, or rather has a prefix of the search word, then we have to return its index plus 1, and the reason why it's I plus 1 and not just I is because this is actually a one index string, and if we don't return I plus 1, or if we don't actually find a word n in our words that starts with the search word that has a prefix of search word, we have to return -1, like it tells us in the problem right outside of the for loop. So unless I made any syntax errors here, this should be accepted and should be a valid solution. And as you can see, this is just about as efficient as you can get. So for the time complexity, this is going to be a big O of n solution because this is really just a one-pass solution. We're really just iterating over our string once. And the memory complexity is also going to be big O of n because we use this extra words list to convert all the different words that are separated by a single space in our input string into an actual list. And as you can see, I can confirm that up here, big O of n. And this is also going to be big O of n. So if you guys enjoyed this solution and learned something new, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. And without further ado, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.